The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brendan.
Welcome back to Old Space Show. I'm Brandon, and this is my companion from Radio Free Scaro, Lazy Doctor Who the Memory Cheats, and I always like to mention he's a multiple Hugo Award winner, Stephen Schapansky.
Confirmed. That's right. 5 Hugo Awards. It hasn't changed my life whatsoever, in case you're wondering what it's like to win 5 Hugo Awards. Doesn't change much. Doesn't change. Oddly enough, though, they kind of look like the Liberator. So maybe the actual trophies themselves can be used as Liberators if in your own fan film, if you're making one about Blake 7.
A Hugo Award winner and now Old Space Show co-host. There you go. There you go. The future is bright, Stephen. This year's Old Space Show follows the intergalactic swashbuckling escape antics of Raj Blake and his ruffian crew in the first season of Blake's 7. Today, we are discussing the first episode, The Way Back.
Well, Brandon, let me tell you, life in a dome city of the future is secure and comfortable for Raj Blake until he discovers the nightmare that contracts everything he knows and threatens to end his life on Earth. When the former resistance leader, brainwashed by the Federation, is contacted by a new dissident group, he is first shattered to learn about his past and then horrified by the brutal massacre of the dissidents. Facing a staged show trial, he finds himself banished to the penal planet, Cygnus Alpha.
This one is directed by Michael E. Bryant, written by Terry Nation, and he'll write all the episodes of this season.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Starring Gareth Thomas. Silly, is it Nivette? Nivette?
Sally Nivette.
Yep.
Sally Nivette, yeah.
Sally Nivette, sorry. Sally Nivette, Michael Keating, Robert Beatty, Gillian Bailey. Robert Beatty, Gillian Bailey, Robert James, Jeremy Wilkin, Michael Halsey, and Margaret John. I'm off to a great start reading off names. I want to note music is done by Dudley Simpson, and the script editor is Chris Boucher, because, Stephen, this is a very Doctor Who adjacent type show.
You know what? I grew up only knowing tangentially about Blake 7. It was mentioned here and there in Doctor Who magazine. I remember seeing a couple pictures of it in a Doctor Who visual effects book, and I thought, wow, there's this other show out there that was made by the BBC, and it looks like it was like amazing and stuff. And then I finally saw it, and it's just like, this is what people who made Doctor Who did just when they weren't making Doctor Who. It's like, oh, do you want to make some Blake 7 now? We're all here. I mean, we got the same sets, we got the same director, the same music. Let's make Blake 7. And so yeah, so one of my favorite parts of watching any television, I usually only stick to like archive BBC television from the 70s and 80s, is that I get to spot Doctor Who actors, and boy oh boy, that is a full-time contact sport when you're watching Blake 7, because there's a lot of people both in front of and behind the camera who make both shows.
Did you just walk freshly off one set onto the other, like get a couple makeup brush strokes and go, or no?
Pretty much. You know what? It's remarkable. I mean, if you're a fan of classic Doctor Who, especially from this era, like the Graham Williams era onwards, the latter half of the 70s, it really does feel like classic Doctor Who, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
It does to me. Apart from, the plot elements of, child rape and all that, which is what these imaginary charges that they bring against Blake in the kangaroo court to send him off to Cygnus Alpha. That's where the dividing line is. We don't quite do those sort of adult themes in Doctor Who, but they do it in Blake 7.
And Doctor Who wouldn't get to those adult themes for like another 6-7 years, and not even close to that.
Not even close to that.
But
not even close.
It wouldn't take a turn that close. For a bit. Dark stuff, bleak stuff. But yeah, we have Michael E. Bryant directing this first episode, who did, Colony in Space, Sea Devils, Green Death, Death of the Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen, Robots of Death.
I know he's a Doctor Who. It's sad actually in that a lot of the people who directed it and Chris Boucher, I'll get into him because Michael E. Bryant is one of my favorite classic Doctor Who directors, and he's sharp as a tack. I've interviewed him relatively recently, and he's like his late 70s, maybe even early 80s, and he still remembers everything he did on every single Doctor Who story. It's amazing. And he's done. After Robots of Death, which he did great work on, he's done, and he only works on Blake 7 after that. David Maloney, who was the producer for the first 3 seasons, was one of the most prolific Doctor Who directors. He's done after that, only works on Blake 7. Chris Boucher, Doctor Who was robbed. Doctor Who was robbed by not having Chris Boucher for longer than they did. Chris Boucher wrote 3 Doctor Who stories, Face of Evil, Robots of Death, and Image of the Fendal. Some of the greatest dialogue in Doctor Who ever happens in those 3 episodes. Once he starts taking over Blake 7, I think Terry Nation is driving the bus in this first season, but after that, Chris Boucher really takes over, and you can tell because the dialogue is really punched up. And we don't get him. We don't get him in Doctor Who, and it's a shame, but he honestly is the unsung hero of Blake 7. He's the reason I go back and watch that is the amazing lines that he pops in there. Yeah. One of my favorite is in the second episode, but we'll get to that when we get to the second episode in another episode of this podcast. But yeah, I quite like Chris Boucher's work.
Right, yeah, he came into Doctor Who, did 3 terrific stories and dropped the mic, and then he was over here at Blake 7. He could have been the Holmes to Hinchcliffe for Williams there.
Yeah. It was Holmes that basically recommended him to the Blake 7 office, thinking, "Hey, if you're looking for a script editor, I found the guy for you." And which I suppose in its own way led Doctor Who to getting Douglas Adams in house for as long as it did, because Chris Boucher might have still been there had Chris Boucher taken the Doctor Who gig instead of the Blake 7 one. So
we can only deal with what we have, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
And appreciate. But yeah, Face of Evil, Robots of Death is maybe one of the best back-to-backs.
It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? There's a lot. One of the great lines in Doctor Who history, television history, is the very powerful, the very stupid have one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit their views. That's a Chris Boucher line from The Face of Evil. If you watch the actual episode, it's happening in the background while Leela is hypnotized and is reaching for a knife to go kill the Doctor. It's a throwaway bit of dialogue, and Chris Boucher writes it as that, and it's the most important thing that Doctor Who has ever said, and is quoted still today. And Chris Boucher is just throwing these things off. That's here. I'll give you that one. I'll just use this throwaway line, which is actually the most impressive thing anyone's ever written for Doctor Who, and it's a throwaway line. Yeah, such a talented writer.
Yeah, Face of Evil, man, that's one of my all-time favorites, and that's one if you want to see how good the classic Doctor Who can be, go check out. It's like Zardoz with less screwiness. Was
not expecting a Zardoz connection tonight, but here we go.
Yes, but yeah. So how old were you, and when was it when you first actually got to sit through Blake 7?
You know what? I was probably late teens, maybe even early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I think my local PBS station, which is not that local, it's about 8 hours away, but it's the one that we picked up in Camrose, Alberta, Canada. And they had for many, many years aired Doctor Who. And, it was the 94, 95, so they were sort of running out of, how many times can we rerun Doctor Who? Even I had taped them all. I had, even I was sort of finding, whatever, Doctor Who's on. And then they said, well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna interrupt the Doctor Who run and air Blake 7. I don't think they had ever aired it before. And so that was my first opportunity. And I didn't actually watch them, but I taped them knowing that I would watch them there. And it took a long time for me to get to watch them, and then I sort of eventually sort of plowed through them once, and they were kind of okay. And then I watched them again, I think when DVD rips were showing up on the internet, so I found those and stuff, and watched them again. But honestly, I've only ever seen each episode. I shouldn't say that because every time you begin a new pilgrimage, you basically have to start from the episode 1. So I've seen these first 3 episodes many times, but the ones after that sort of then we get into diminishing returns. I've only seen like once or twice. So yeah, I recorded it in like 95, was first, experienced it, and then very gradually over the next like 20 years did I actually start watching it proper.
Gotcha. So for me, this one, in the United States for it, like nowadays this doesn't matter, but at the amount of episodes total this has, it's not an attractive syndication package because they usually wanted 100 for syndication back in the day, and I can't even remember if my PBS station would run it because I didn't know. It was something like back of my mind. I'd seen it, stuff where it going into like Who North America a lot because they have a little section where there's some Douglas Adam things and some Blake Seven stuff, and I was like, Blake Seven. And I believe your show, you guys referenced Blake Seven on Radio Free Scar when I heard it, and then when the pandemic lockdown happened, there was a YouTube channel that there were all the episodes because you can't get it on DVD here in North America. It's never been. Did they even release the VHSs here?
I don't know if they did back in the day. Certainly not the DVDs, but
it really has not crossed over here until now. It's on BritBox. So
it is.
If you want to watch Blake Seven with us, if you're on this side of the ocean, or either ocean from the UK, you have to watch it on BritBox, which I'm never had BritBox till now to rewatch Blake Seven. But this was this pandemic show for me. I went through it, all through it, and I was like, I would like to do this as an old space show down the road here. Which would have been early days of the Brandon Peters show and planning, so I might not have been even recording the show when I was looking at Blake Seven. So I was like, okay. So, and I'm happy to have you here, you'll be the expert, I guess, for Blake Seven.
I'll point out the Doctor Who actors.
That's what I need you for.
I'll
know some obvious ones. You'll pick out the little ones. But yes, so I went through it. It's a very it's very Doctor Who like, but very also like goes in a direction and tone that Doctor Who would never take a lot of the time. So. But you could easily imagine the TARDIS showing up in the middle of one of these adventures and him getting involved at some point. Definitely. It feels like, because some of my favorite, Doctor Who episodes would be like, he just wound up in some random sci-fi movie, and this is a sci-fi show. So.
Yep. Well, it was nearly a crossover, but we can talk to that when we get to that episode. But
Gotcha.
Teaser. Yep.
All right. So this first episode, this show, to set the stage for listeners, we're going here. This is patient and building to what we don't even have our full cast for a few episodes here.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's not serialized, but it's certainly it's a continuation.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't even have our main sets. We don't have.
Nope.
We don't even know. You kind of don't even know what the show's gonna be. If you go in blind. We have a very Logan's Run-esque show for this first episode. People living in a dome.
Yep.
Being lied to, controlled.
Very dystopian on a BBC budget. Yeah.
But a lot of people just bored walking through halls. It looks like the world is. A lot of men walking through halls and one woman who's like, "Hi, Blake."
Yep. Yeah. You know what? I actually like the way they because this is basically the only time we see Earth proper in the entire show, and I kind of like that. Not like sure the Federation guards are a little bit jackbooted stormtroopers, but everyone else sort of seems to be just regular sort of people functioning in society. But they're really towing the line. There's one guy who says, "Oh yeah," but then after the his lawyer leaves and goes, "Okay, well, let's get on to the authorities about this," because everyone sort of seems kind of nice, but there's a veneer of like we're all part of this, But it would have been easy to have all the supporting characters in this first episode, be fundamentally evil, but even the lawyer Varen, who's Blake's lawyer in this, he's sort of like, honestly, he's the lead in this episode. Blake is barely the lead in the first episode of a show that bears his name,
Yeah, he finds out something, then he's stuck to a bed, and then just waiting for a court case, then in a cell, and then trapped and just stuck on a ship. He really doesn't move too much or anything like that. But yeah, they have this the dome thing, and there's a rebellious group outside, which I have to say I really like. I don't know if it's a matte or a model shot being transposed, but that looks really awesome at night.
It's a good shot. It's an impressive shot for 1977, with the dome in the background. I think it's kind of I don't know if it's a split screen or if it's a matte painting or what kind of effect they use for it. But yeah, I was given where Doctor Who was at the time. I'm not even sure that was was done in post-production. It might have been a shot that was sort of lined up live, although it was on film though, so maybe it was kind of done in post-production a little bit. But I thought it was an impressive thing. It helped sell the scenario, what was going on. It didn't look too flashy. Being at night probably helped a great deal. Yes. But I was impressed by that shot.
Yeah, really good production. There's a lot of hallmarks of like 70s science fiction I like here, like that. There's the courtroom is that kind of like hauntingly empty white room type feeling. I love that stuff. I get really into that. But it also has the mixture of video and film and certain things that with British television that I love, especially the British sci-fi, is there's and this is what attracted me to Doctor Who back in the day and all that, is they've got this unintentional like scary factor to things that aren't really meant to be, but they just kind of come off the way just because the way you go from video to like a film thing and the way they shoot on film. It's hard to describe, but it's just kind of got this like unsettling kind of feeling when it's not trying to unsettle you.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, many people would call that cheap. Certainly, even when I was growing up watching Doctor Who, that was made in that style, people were thinking it was cheap. I thought it was cheap, but now I find it almost endearing. It's just it's a sign of the times of how they made television back in those days on sort of creepy videotape and stuff. And it was efficient. I think what you lose in being able to shoot and light a scene as you would want it, because you have to sort of light the whole set to be visible as opposed to each individual shot. And so a lot of the lighting looks a lot more flat in these multi-camera videotape productions. But what I think you gain, and this is not just for Blake 7, but for Doctor Who and other shows like The Sandbaggers, you get it in the rhythm of the performance, because you're watching one complete performance of a scene as opposed to people sort of doing their lines for one take of it and then they move the camera and do another take and it's edited together. The editing happens as the performance is happening essentially, and there's a real pace to it. And I think Gareth Thomas, who plays Blake, is very much a accomplished theater performer. You can sort of tell he's got that sort of that theatric quality to him. You've done a brilliant job. No one could sort of shout that out if he hasn't done that to the back seats in a theater somewhere. And so you get this wonderful rhythm and this real heightened drama because of the way it's shot. Blake 7 almost kind of diminishes a little bit once you go on to film, and so whenever they go back into studio and you've got like the characters interacting towards the end of the episode with Villa and Jenna and stuff, I feel like there's a real rhythm to it all, and I appreciate the way they were produced back then.
Yeah, and I to go along with it, I don't mean to I mean this in terms of genre television stuff. With the British stuff, the acting's just better because there's like a training to them, but like you said, they have to do it then and there, and they seem there's a mentality of just hey, cool, I have a part, doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter this, it's a part and I have to give it 100%. People have to believe this, whereas it's slumming it if you're in the US and you're like, well, I'm a guest star in Star Trek this week, like you don't feel not saying they're all bad in those shows, but like every single person on Blake 7 from one line or just walking in the background is like committed, and that's what you get with like Doctor Who. You get that with Avenger. You get that with like all these shows. It's not corny or, everybody buys into it because you take ownership of a performance, a part, and that's what matters to the British performer as opposed to the American one.
Yeah, and also the format of production affected that too, because if it was all film, what you would do, like Robert Beatty, who plays Brand Foster, the leader of the dissidents, only appears on film. He likely would have been one day would have showed up. Maybe there's probably a longer bit of film scenes. They might have done rehearsal, but usually they show up on the day, they rehearse, record. They basically, here's what we're going to do. You know your lines. Let's run through the scene once or twice, then we'll shoot it on film in many different angles, and that's how we'll do it. When you're doing the studio, what they do is they rehearse it like a play, literally for a week and a half, and then they shoot it basically in the span of like one evening. When everyone's got it down in their head, they basically shoot it over the course of 3.5 hours, I think, maybe probably longer, actually, 45 for a 45-minute episode. They might have done it over 2 days. But so everyone from the leads to like the people who are in like one or two scenes, they've all been part of that rehearsal process, and so they've all been part of the team, the same company. So if you're a bit part actor on an American show or a film show, you're literally only in there for one day, an afternoon maybe. You know your lines, you say them, you're gone, and that's it. You don't have a connection to that. But everyone who's involved in these type of shows is there. It's the company putting on this sort of performance, and even though you might have a smaller part of it, you are still there for the whole process.
And then you go to the pub after and talk gossip with the boys.
Lots of liquid lunches back in those days, from what I gather. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Liquid lunches that could make you forget, like Blake forgetting his past, which
I can't remember.
We've got a hero who's been he was this mercenary hero that has memory wipe, which has some spooky, cool flashback cuts to his memory wipe and stuff with the guards, and some interesting, nice little unsettling things there. That and he's also set for a trial, which you mentioned, child molestation. That's a wow. Okay, well.
We're doing this, are we? All right, here we go.
Well, I guess if you really want him to, his people to turn on him, I guess. There you go. There's that, and then like the massacre of the outsiders, the people that he meets with, and we have this girl that leads him. That we're like, oh, this is gonna be like, starting to build the crew. Oh no, they are all dead.
Yeah,
all of them.
All of them, every single one, apart from the one who turned him in.
Yes.
Terrence. Yeah.
Yes, Terrence. Just wow. The molestation, just murder, just wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty shocking, brutal sequence, actually. You know, all things considered. But it's so funny. Blake 7 as child molestation, mass slaughter in the basement of this building, and yet around the same time, I've seen clips of Blue Peter, a kids show that Doctor Who would often also feature on, showing how to make teleport bracelets. So there's this. There's this weird connection. Like, hey, did you catch Blake 7 last night with the child molestation plot line? Well, here's how you can build your own teleport bracelet, kids.
Do you need to get away from a dangerous adult? Well, we'll make a...
You could make it out of cardboard. It was amazing. I don't the 70s, man. The 70s. I don't understand.
Too. We had a Rambo cartoon for a Rambo's movies that they couldn't go see, or we couldn't go see as a kid. Like, wild stuff. But yeah, and innocent times. I don't know.
I know innocent times, but
So He's not innocent, I guess. Well, he is, but he isn't. And then, he's got the world's best lawyer who decides, I probably should have done some more research after the fact.
Yep. But that just shows you how, the society is. They just like, it's open and shut. I mean, why would this be any different? But the fact that there actually is a lawyer who fairly quickly sort of like, begins to believe Blake, there's hope for Earth after all. Not everyone's been brainwashed.
Right. Also, 30 minutes in, we meet two more of the main cast, Jenna Stannis and Villa Restal.
We rarely hear his last name.
Yes.
in the show. It's usually just Villa. Yeah.
Yeah, just Villa, and he's a thief and she's a smuggler, and they learn each other in prison. They're all going to take a trip to Cygnus Alpha, which is a penal colony where they'll spend their days. But in this, there's a race against time here. As the lawyer, he, in the middle of the night, he, like No Country for Old Men, when Josh Brolin's like, okay, and goes back to that scene to check out. He goes to do research, finding out, they brainwash the kids to say that this happened, and goes to find the tunnels, and then the ship takes off the London, and it's too late because the lawyer, while he had the evidence, him and his girlfriend are murdered.
Yep.
And the ship is headed to Cygnus Alpha. Yeah. And then they say, take a good look. It's the last you'll ever see of it. And Blake says, no, I'm coming back.
Boom, 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 ba-dum. Yep. It's a good closing moment. Good closing moment, I thought, to that. He didn't overplay it. Blake,
Right.
This is no, I'm coming back.
Yes. Yeah, no, 100%. It's a good start. It gets you hooked right away. Go into this mysterious, as much as it hooks you in with like where are they going to discover outside of the city, then whoa, they killed everybody. And then the race against the clock with the lawyer. That's a pretty good hook for a first episode, I think.
I think so too. For one, as you say, is a slow burn in a way. That we don't get to meet all the heroes. We don't get to see what the cause is. We just get introduced to, the main character who at the beginning is as clueless as the rest of us, having his memories wiped and stuff. And so I kind of like that. It's a good hook for it's a good way to bring the viewer in without having a lot of, dialogue between characters who have obviously know what they're talking about, but have to, explain it to each other so the audience understands. Because Blake has had his memories wiped. There's various different characters that basically explain who he was and what the situation is to him, because he doesn't know, and therefore we don't know, but we could fill it in at the same time. It's a bit of ingenious writing. Well done, Terry Nation, on that.
And also props for not like Blake 7 has a big main cast, and it's not like here's everybody.
Yeah. It's like an ensemble drama. Like we pick up little pieces, we move a pawn here, and then we move another pawn, and we don't learn about anyone. We just sort of like learn who they are a little bit, and then the episode ends. No, we learn about Blake, and we start to learn about Jenna and Villa, and then as the series progresses, we get to meet the rest of the characters who eventually become the main ones. I like that. I like learning 2 or 3 at a time. Imagine like introducing 8 people at a party to you at once, and seeing if you remember anything about them. No, meet the first 2 and then have some more come along, and then you'll remember each of them better.
Exactly. Perfect. Yes, definitely. But yeah, that'll do it for this first episode of Blake 7. So, Stephen, before we head out, please share with everybody your information.
I have several Doctor Who podcasts, Lazy Doctor Who, which is being very lazy at the moment, which I do with my spouse Erica, but the main one is Radio Free Scaro, which we do every single week, and occasionally we even mention Blake 7 when we're talking about classic Doctor Who. So there's the tie-in right there, but it's mostly a Doctor Who podcast.
Awesome. And if you're a lazy Doctor Who listener that tunes into this and you think I'm preventing more of those from happening, well, apologies. But
yeah.
Get in the way. #Bleaks7. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. My written work is on whysoblue.com. I did 9 Blu-ray reviews in 7 days last week, so
wow.
Go check some of them out. There is more from the Brandon Peters Show this week, as we are on the final leg of the Summer of 82 at 40 series. Scott Mendelson and I are winding those down, so definitely check that out. It's been a lot of fun. But right now, from Old Space...
If it takes all my life, I will destroy you, Blake. I will destroy you. I will destroy you.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail@brandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.